some NFL. So just get the mood up real quick before going to NFL, man. How was week one for y'all? Y'all team win, y'all lost. I don't know. I'm gonna get into it. A lot of my friends' teams lost, but the Buccaneers, we stood strong. You know what I mean? We'll get into that, of course. That's the last game of the night. It was the primetime game, 5:30 game on NBC and all that. You know what I'm saying? 19-3. You know, you saw him out there, young Thomas Brady, 45, coming out there holding down. But I'm not gonna start there. We're gonna go in order. We already saw. I don't know if I reviewed it. No, because it was actually getting ready to happen when I recorded the last episode. So the Buffalo Bills, the opening game last week, destroyed the LA Rams on ring banner night. They got their rings. Odell was out there dancing and stuff. People thought the Rams were going to repeat as champions. You know what I mean? We were hearing a lot about Matthew Stafford's elbow, and we didn't know how he was going to actually hold up. People thought it was just speculation. He said his elbow was good, but he didn't play too well, man. They made the Buffalo Bills look like world beaters, and everybody's kind of predicting the Buffalo Bills will win the championship this year. And after Thursday night's game, I don't think anybody's belief in them is going to waver at all because they whooped up on the Rams. I mean, I think Matthew Stafford had 3 turnovers, throwing crazy interceptions. To me, it was a really weird game. I'm going to talk fantasy-wise for a little bit because I had Allen Robinson, man. Allen Robinson, coming from his situation from being on the Bears and not being able to get many targets, not really having a quarterback. Everybody thought this year would be his year to actually go out there and kind of show what he had with a good quarterback that won the Super Bowl last year, Matthew Stafford. They had this offseason. They were saying that he was great in camp and he's going to have a good showing in week one. I started his ass in my flex and he ended up getting 1 point. It was crazy in this game that Cooper Kupp had 17 targets. That's nuts. I have never heard of that kind of shit. I know that's his best friend and everything, and they won a Super Bowl together, but 17 targets is crazy, first and foremost. Tyler Higbee had 11 targets, and I think Allen Robinson only had 2 targets total. One of them was like a 12-yard gain, and the second one was like a desperation throw at the end of the game, which wasn't really gonna decide anything. And it was a bad throw. It was a terrible throw. More so, it was supposed to be like a fade to the back of the end zone, but he threw away inside, and it was almost intercepted. So I don't know, man. Of course, I can't not talk about Josh Allen. He was crazy out there running, throwing bombs. Their offense looked like it was made perfectly to beat the Rams. They really missed Von Miller because Von Miller on the other side was causing havoc. I think he had 2 sacks. Even without Tre'Davious White, they were able to contain the receivers and didn't let them score many points. It was crazy. Devin Singletary looked crazy. James Cook fumbled on his first carry, though. It's crazy. But the game, Josh Allen was just dominant, man. He was stiff-arming DBs and stuff, running for first downs, running when he shouldn't have been running. And they scored at will. And they had a couple turnovers themselves. So if they didn't have those turnovers, they might have had more than 31 points. So that's what's crazy about it. They could have had 50 points in that game if they really wanted to and weren't turning over the ball. But hopefully the Rams will, recover in week 2. I'll talk about the game, the week 2 matchups and the spreads and shit like that a little bit later. But the Rams had some trouble. They lost 31-10. The Baltimore Ravens beat the Jets 24-9. Lamar Jackson was showing that even though he declined his contract that they offered him, that he's going to bet on himself and go out there and ball out. And he did, even though the Jets are kind of lowly right now. They got Joe Flacco starting, and their defense was all over his ass. Marcus Peters being back. And some of the additions they got in the draft is making their defense look nasty. And Bateman actually was out there, scored a 50-yard touchdown. So if Bateman can come alive, they have Mark Andrews, of course. Duvernay has actually been showing his ass, which means doing well for the last couple of years now out of Texas. So if that receiving core can put itself together, I'm hearing a lot about Isaiah Likely, who I talked about a lot in the last couple of episodes, but I haven't seen much of him yet. But if he can come on and then Dobbins gets healthy, they can be good, man. They just signed, I think, who was it? Kenyon Drake. And he's a hard runner, man. He's not the best running back in the league or nothing like that by any means. But, having him be another back in the backfield, to have him with whoever's going to be starting out there once Dobbins get fully healthy, I think they'll be all right. Joe Burrow and them just lost. I'll get into that a little bit later. And the Steelers barely beat them. So if Lamar Jackson can hold his water, and the Browns barely beat the Panthers. I'll get into that also a little bit later. So if Lamar can get his stuff together, he can win the division and be back in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? So, and get that big contract that he wants. Just stay healthy, and the game looked pretty good for him, man. Whoever has him in fantasy, he's gonna get you pay off big dividends this year. Atlanta versus the Atlanta versus Falcons. The Saints versus the Falcons. The Saints barely won 27-26. It's kind of crazy how Atlanta always has a lead and kind of collapses towards the end. We always put our faith in Atlanta and think they can make some kind of upset or think they can get to the promised land of some kind, but they always end up blowing it in the end. Ever since that Super Bowl, I ain't got to get into it. Some Atlanta fans already know what's going on, and I know the Patriots already know what's going on, Patriots fans. So this entire game, Marcus Mariota was, controlling the game. I saw Cordell Patterson. I was watching a lot of these games on Red Zone, was controlling the ball as well. They were scoring at will. I think Jameis Winston had like 54 passing yards at halftime. Their defensive line was getting pushed around, and it looked like the Falcons were going to steal a victory, but I guess that's not what happened. I'm not too sure what happened towards the end of the game, but Jameis Winston was able to come back. I know Michael Thomas ended up scoring 2 touchdowns somehow. Jarvis Landry had a good game, and Chris Olave had a good game as well. They are going to be pretty dangerous. We play the Saints next week. I'll talk about that in the week 2 matchups as well and talk about that spread a little bit, but sheesh, man. They blew it. They blew it. My boy Marcus Mariota is still starting for now. Hopefully he has less games like this and he ends up winning more than he loses, so you don't lose a spot to Desmond Ridder halfway through the season. But yeah, they lost that game. We got the Saints next week. We'll handle your lightweight, Atlanta. I'm talking to you guys, Jason. Excuse me. Goes. Who we got next? Miami and New England. Miami surprisingly beat New England and handed them 20-7. The Pats are struggling. All the stuff we heard in the offseason, and Mac Jones kind of struggling with the offense, and the offense not really looking good. Josh McDaniels is with the Raiders now. I think Matt Patricia is in charge of the offense. So I think it's kind of looking ugly for him right now. They don't know really what to do. Mac Jones hurt his back. He's supposed to be able to go for week 2. But Tua and all those weapons they got out there in Miami were able to handle Bill Belichick and their defense. You know what I'm saying? I saw Waddle had like a 70-yard touchdown, something crazy like that. Tyreek Hill had some catches, and I saw that Chase Edmonds had a good game as well. So if Tua can hold that offense together and do some things, you know what I mean? I feel like the Dolphins could, get a wild card because I know they ain't beaten the Bills twice, or maybe not even once, but who knows? The Dolphins is, it's looking up, and hopefully Tua can hold the team together and get some wins in there so people don't talk about cutting them so much, because I like Tua, you know what I'm saying? They won 20-7. Cleveland beat the Panthers 26-24, Cleveland Browns. This was the return of well, it wasn't the return of. It was the return of the Browns, I guess, to Baker Mayfield's new home because he's playing with the Panthers now. The Panthers were the home team. The Browns were visiting, but all his old players, of course, Baker famously played for the Browns for about 5 years, I think. I think they didn't pick up his contract or something like that, and they traded him in his 5th year, something crazy like that. But it was crazy because the beginning of the game, he did terribly. He was fumbling, throwing interceptions. Weirdly, they weren't giving the ball to Christian McCaffrey nearly enough. I don't know if they were trying to prove that Baker Mayfield can make the throws and throw the ball, but they needed to stick to the game plan and just give the ball to Christian McCaffrey 140 times, because I do got him a fan in my fantasy football team, a couple of teams actually. He dropped to me in the 8th pick, and I was kind of happy to get him there, but shit, man, he only got me 15 points, but I'm used to him getting like 40. It's full PPR, man. Give me at least 20. Give him more touches, more carries if you're trying to win some games. But anyways, it was pretty much the Baker game. That's what the coaches, Matt Rule, kind of made it seem like. They had him throwing the ball up and down the field early. Of course, like I said, he was making some mistakes, threw a couple interceptions, and he fumbled. Everybody thought it was going to be the ultimate Baker game. He was what we thought he was, just a turnover-prone quarterback that can't really make nothing happen in big spots. But he was actually able to make a little comeback. A couple of passes to Robbie Anderson. Christian McCaffrey was doing a little bit of work. You better get the fuck off my street, bro. Yeah, sorry about that. A garbage truck just drove up the street. Garbage day was a couple of days ago, bro. I don't know why you coming down the street like that. Sheesh. But anyways, where was before I was really interrupted? Yeah, he was kind of making a little comeback. And And they did make a comeback. They took a lead like a couple of minutes into the fourth quarter, but Jacoby Brissett was able to mount a comeback. Nick Chubb was running like crazy the whole game. The Panthers couldn't really stop it, and they didn't really make Jacoby Brissett throw the ball as much as he should have had to throw the ball. They made the game really easy for him. And right when we thought Jacoby Brissett had too much and Baker was actually going to have his comeback game and the fairy tale ending to the game that he wanted, the Browns kicker makes like a 58-yard field goal to seal the victory, and the Browns actually end up winning. It's kind of crazy. Week 2, hopefully, again, you give it to Christian McCaffrey more, and maybe you'll win the game, Baker Mayfield. Stop trying to show off and prove that you're the shit. Just do what you need to do to win games, and that'll solidify your spot as a quarterback. When Sam Darnold gets healthy with that ankle, he won't take your spot because you won't be trying to force it and making hella mistakes. Just give the ball to Christian McCaffrey. That's all you got to do. Anyways, next game, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. This one was kind of crazy. Joe Burrow ended up throwing having 5 turnovers. Didn't really have a great game. The Pittsburgh Steelers were kind of handling them throughout the first half because of all the turnovers. But Joe Burrow, man. Skip Bayless says he's the next Brady. I don't say all that, but him and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and Joe Mixon, man, that those offensive weapons are way too much for anybody, you know what I mean? And they were able to make that comeback and able to make it close. And then it came down to field goals. Is that truck coming back? Like, what the fuck is happening? Excuse my language for everybody listening. That truck just made a fucking U-turn. Anyways, back to what I was saying. The game was kind of crazy because we had 2 games in the NFL this week that had like a 20-20 score in overtime. And both kickers were missing field goals on both teams. And it took McPherson, of course, we saw him last year talking all that mess in the playoffs that he was like so 100% on field goals that just put him in range and he'll make any field goal any day type shit. He was so braggadocious about it. But in this game, he was missing a bunch, and Boswell ended up kicking a field goal in overtime to win the game 23-20. Not much in this game really happened. Najee Harris didn't really do much. He hurt his foot in this game and was questionable for week 2, so who knows exactly what's going to happen with that. Najee's from Antioch, out here in the Bay, so we always root for him, but he is looking a little nicked up right now. They both had 2 chances to win the game with field goals, and they missed it in overtime. So it was just kind of crazy game to see. Speaking of crazy games to see, Chicago Bears beating the 49ers 19-10. Never would have expected this. We thought that the Bears had no offense and couldn't score against anybody, would never be able to beat the 49ers. And the 49ers are supposed to be this high-powered, ready-to-go type of team, made the NFC Championship last year, and they thought with Trey Lance, they'll be primed to go. But the football gods had another story. It was a monsoon out there, and it didn't really give Trey Lance an opportunity to show his talents. You know what I mean? Rainy games, you're kind of limited to the running game and to really safe throws because you can't catch the ball. It's super slick, and it's hard to throw the ball out there in the rain, let alone catch the ball. So Trey Lance kind of struggled out there, and being that Justin Fields, I don't know if he's really used to rain, but he's used to inclement conditions in Chicago. I know that for sure. He was able to score. It was like, I think it was 10-0, and he was able to score 19 unanswered points to win the game, which was really crazy. I know the 49ers were a little embarrassed about it, but they'll bounce back. The weather conditions, I feel like they're never going to have to play in those kind of conditions again this year. I think they'll be all right. So 49ers play the Seattle Seahawks, I believe, this week. So I think they'll have a bounce back game. I think it'll be rather dry in Seattle or in Santa Clara. So I think everybody will be all good. And I think he'll have a bounce back game. Trey Lance, if you have him in fantasy, don't give up on it too soon. You probably picked him up late. That's a great value. You know what I mean? The Philadelphia Eagles versus the Detroit Lions. Man, 38-35. This game was interesting as well. Because the Eagles got off to a fast start, scoring points at will. AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown connection was as promised. He got targeted 13 times, which was interesting. He caught 10 passes and had 155 yards, no touchdowns. Hold on 1 second. I stressed out no touchdowns things because he's my number 1 receiver, my receiver 1. in fantasy right now, and I need those touchdowns. He got me 15 points, but if he would have had a touchdown with that, we would have been like in the high 20s, almost 30 points. You know what I mean? But I do respect the targets. They are supposed to be like best friends. I didn't know that. He went to Ole Miss, and Jalen Hurts went to Oklahoma and Alabama. So I didn't really know they were friends like that. But for them to be friends and have that connection on the field is really good to see. Excuse me. Wow. Girl got dry on me right there. But yeah, the game was good. Miles Sanders was out there scoring touchdowns too. He's always encouraging people not to pick him up in fantasy because the team, you don't never know who's going to score. But he was out there doing his thing and got a bunch of points in fantasy. I like that. Jalen Hurts also was doing his thing in fantasy. People that took him this year weren't really sure if they wanted to take him or not due to his arm and stuff like that, and weren't really sure if he was going to be able to hold it down like he should as quarterback one for them. But he's doing his thing, man. The Lions coming off of Hard Knocks were actually making a comeback too. As you can see, it was 35-38. The Eagles didn't really close out the game much. Jamal Williams scored a couple touchdowns. You know what I'm saying? Jared Goff and DeAndre Swift did their thing as well. Amon-Ra St. Brown, of course, did their thing. The Lions aren't to be, trifle with. Dan Campbell got them playing hard at least. They're down 38 to, I don't know. I think they had a lot of points. They're down a lot to a little for a lot of the game. And for them to muster up a comeback like that and almost, come back and win the game, it's pretty interesting. You know what I'm saying? They're not the Lions from the past that just roll over to everybody. And I want to see what they look like against the Packers, because the Packers didn't have a good game either this week. So we'll talk about that in a second. It's the best of bias. You need the earful. You should try us. From pop culture to the movies to unite us. It's the best of bias. The best of bias. Yeah. It's the best of bias.
You are now listening to the Best of Bias podcast.